Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour, episode, I think 25. I think I said that yesterday, my mistake, but yeah, we're 25 episodes in now. So,
Very nice,
congratulations.
25.
Um, I'm here with Fantasy Awash today. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Would you mind sharing your actual name or no? If not,
It's
that's okay.
Laura. Initially, when I started my channel, it was a podcast with my husband, and it was Fantasy Awash with Laura and Josh, which I thought was really funny because it rhymed. But then when we got too busy to keep doing it, I just decided to convert it into a booktube channel, and I dropped the rest of it because Josh was no longer a part of it. So most people just don't know my
Oh, okay.
name.
So, Laura.
Yeah.
Okay. You have a YouTube channel, which has
Do.
about the same amount of subscribers. You have a similar amount of subscribers that I do right now, because I also have a
Yeah.
BookTube channel, I guess you could say. BookTube, comics, whatever the
Yeah.
hell my channel is now. But yeah. So how'd you get into this like BookTube thing? Like, wait, like what? What made you interested? Like,
So I had no idea what BookTube was. Um, I just had zero inclination as to what that was. And then when the Wheel of Time adaptation came out, I started looking for videos that did comparisons between the book and the show. And I came across Bookborn's channel,
mm,
and that was my introduction to BookTube. And I was like, oh, people actually talk about books. Like, that's really awesome. Like, I don't know why I never thought to look at this earlier because I'm always that annoying person when I'm around people that I'm like, hey, have you read this? And I usually get greeted with the same no every single time. So I was like, oh my God, there's a community of people that actually talk about books. This is something that I want to jump into. So then afterwards, my husband and I started doing our podcast, and then I started uploading that onto YouTube, but life just got too busy. We have a 1 year old, and he was like, I can't manage both. So we decided that he was going to call it quits and I was going to keep going, and I made it into a booktube channel instead.
fair enough. I'll admit, I like to sometimes do. I call it homework, I guess, because
Mhm.
it's like get like an idea what your channel is, and you've covered some books like I know you like Neil Gaiman
I
and
do.
Joe Abercrombie. I also really enjoy Neil Gaiman and Joe Abercrombie. I have
Yeah. Love
the
Neil
first the
Gaiman.
first law
Yeah.
books over here. I don't want to pull them out though. Maybe if I'm making a point later, I'll pull them out. But yeah, they're right there.
I've got them on my shelf right
Yes,
there.
I
So,
see. You got a few
yeah,
copies.
I do. I have all both trilogies, and then two of the standalones are there. Best Served Cold is in my living room because I was reading it earlier.
How far are you into it?
I'm not super far in. I think I'm about 160 to 170 pages in.
Okay.
So still pretty early days. I haven't had a ton of time to like read a physical book this week. It's been a lot of audiobooks this week. But
Oh,
it's
have you
all good.
listened to like Stephen Pacey's take on?
So good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
really
I
good.
had watched a review, I think it was on Mike's channel,
Mm-hmm.
and he was saying, to preface this, like I'm generally not an audiobook person. I am very much a physical book person. And he said, he's like, if you're ever gonna pick up an audiobook, it really should be First Law. And I thought, yeah, okay. And I ended up being
You're
at a
too cool
place
for
where I just
audiobooks
couldn't.
for a while there.
Yeah, and I couldn't physically read for a little while because I had a head injury going on. So I was like, I'm gonna listen to some stuff instead. And I was in the middle of Last Argument of Kings, and I was like, I wonder if they have it on the Libby app, and they did. So I listened to it, and I was like, everyone should listen to this. It is so good. He's just such an animated narrator. It's
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. I can't say enough good things about him. Have you listened to him?
Mm-hmm. Love
Yeah, he's
them.
great. Yeah,
He's so
basically like
good.
I'm debating reading the next trilogy or trying to listen to it. I haven't decided yet. I'm like
Yeah, he's
on the fence.
really good. I
Yeah.
listened to his I listened to when Giselle and Baez have their final talk. I listened to that over and over again because I don't know why.
Love
I guess
it.
I'm a masochist because that scene's pretty horrifying.
Maybe.
Yeah. Or if you don't like Giselle, you're like, yes.
I love Giselle. My husband read the books before I did, and I was curious because he was saying I had got him the first law for Christmas last year because it seemed to be up his alley. And when he was reading it, I was like, everyone online talks about this character named Glokta and how he's their favorite character. And he was like, my favorite character is this guy named Giselle. He's like, I'm going to be interested to see when you read it. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I ended up really liking Giselle also, but not as much as Glokta. I am like a hardcore Glokta fan, but I do love
Me too.
Giselle as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a soft spot for not broken characters. Well, yeah, I do have a soft spot for broken characters, but he's broken in a different way physically.
Yeah. Yeah, physically broken, not just emotionally broken, I guess, because they're all kind of broken in that story.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a good series. It's really good. Do you watch Tori on YouTube?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I watched her read along of the trilogy. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be fun. I want to see what she'll think. And then, like, last Argument of Kings, she was like, man, that was kind of whack. And I'm like, it is not just whack. It's pretty good.
I get why people feel that way, though.
But no, it's all right. I still liked her video. She was, she wasn't just like going like, this sucks and
no, I appreciate that Tori gives a very well-rounded review. I feel like I was kind of prepped for it, I want to say, just because a lot of people online were saying that they super were not into the ending, and then a few people were like, no, I absolutely love the ending. And when I was talking to my husband about it, he was like, I wasn't crazy about the ending, and I was like, okay. So I went into it kind of guarded, but I really liked it up until probably the last like few lines. And then those last few lines, I was like, I don't know how I feel about those couple of lines, but everything else I was okay with.
I like it because everything just comes full circle for me anyway.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It is a downer ending, so I can see why some people are like, man.
A bit, yeah. I mean, I like that Abercrombie does kind of the anti-hero. That's more his thing, and I liked essentially that we realize human nature will always win out, which is good. I liked that.
Yeah, no, like there's those like buzzwords on YouTube or BookTube that kind of bug me, like morally gray, for instance, and not trying to like call anyone out or anything, but it's just like,
why does it bother you, or why is it like
know. It's like a good like word, or it's a good phrase to like go like nuanced characters or something like that. I don't even know if I know, but every time I hear it, I'm just like, okay.
I feel like the first time
I still love you.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the first time I really heard it in terms of a book character was with Theon from A Song of Ice and Fire. And when I was hearing it, I was like, yeah, I could see that. So, I mean, the term it's not a trigger word for me. It doesn't bother me.
It's not a trigger word. Don't say that.
Well, it doesn't offend me in any way. I'm fine with morally gray, just being morally gray or morally gray characters. It's not too irksome.
Yeah. It just kind of irks me a little bit, is all I'm saying. But, but yeah, no, or, but yeah, no, it's just kind of like, I prefer to say, like, they're nuanced characters. It's not that they're just good or evil, which, I mean, I guess that's the same thing. But, I mean, it's what side do you lean on, you know?
Yeah.
Because,
a little bit, yeah.
Because if, it's one thing Abercrombie is saying is, morality is a very murky thing, especially when you're in a war. Or any of those kind of situations like that.
Yeah.
Unless you're like Baez, who's just a megalomaniac.
Oh, very megalomaniac. But that was probably why I think I liked Glokta the best, because I felt in terms of questioning morality, Glokta probably did it the most. At least that was my perception of all the characters.
Yeah, he's a really interesting one. And
yeah.
They're all, like, all three of the main characters I thought were interesting. I'll admit, Giselle was, like, when I started liking him, then life decided to just smack him down and just, like, put put its foot in his face into the ground, which is not at all specific. That I was totally not thinking of the scene when him and Baez talked for the last time, but oh well.
Yeah, it's a great scene. It's a really good scene.
I wasn't thinking of that, but it's basically like life just decides to kick him in the, kick him down. I'm like, damn it! I was just starting to like this guy. Come on.
I still like him.
No, he's a wreck. He's a broken mess by the end of the story.
I'm okay with it. He still holds a place in my heart, just not as big a place as Galacta.
Yeah, I liked Logan a lot because I don't know, I like those barbarian, blood and thunder kind of characters, and also he's an interesting take on that. It's like, well, what if like this Conan the Barbarian type of character was real? What would that be like?
He was probably my least favorite of the main three.
Yeah, he's a very manly character, so I can see how some people might turn some people off.
I just found really not that though. Like I can deal with that machismo in a character, like that doesn't really bother me. But
I didn't want to assume, but I'm just saying, like
Yeah, I just found that the North storyline for me was my least invested storyline. Like I just didn't gravitate to that as much, so I found the chapters with Dogman and Wes to be a little tiresome at times. I ended up liking Dogman more as the series went on.
I liked Wes' evolution into a more savage.
A lot of people do. I'm kind of in the minority where
kind of bugged me. That was one thing that bugged me about Tori's take on and still love Tori. She's in my heart and all that. That's weird, but anyway, but yeah, it kind of bugged me when she's like, yeah, Wes' stuff isn't that interesting, and I'm like,
I agree with her.
Yeah.
I agree, honestly.
I don't know. I guess I'm just attracted to like stories about people being driven to extremes, so maybe that's just why I dug it. But it's whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like probably other than Pharaoh.
Yeah, Pharaoh was my favorite. She drove me insane after a while. She just like her stuff with Logan. That was interesting, but aside from that,
I really enjoyed that dynamic between the two of them. But once they separate, I'm like, oh no, we're back to kind of.
Yeah, she's always like hissing and like threatening to murder people. I'm like, this is stupid.
Yeah, it's a bit of one.
No, I do think her hissing is hilarious. She has like this in the dialogue. I think that's hilarious.
I did like how Pacey did all of their voices, and I thought Pharaoh's voice for what he did also was very, very
go fucking pinks every like 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, buddy, this is just getting...
Yeah. I've been told that his writing of female characters improves significantly in the Age of Madness trilogy, so I'm eager to get to that.
So I'm not... Like, I didn't have so much of a problem with his female characters, but it's just like they just weren't as interesting, in my opinion.
That's the thing. Like, he's clearly capable of writing these phenomenal characters. And I found for the first series, I was like, Artie is fine. Like, she's fine. But she's not fleshed out in the same way by any means as another character because she doesn't have POVs in the book. But Pharaoh was really one-dimensional in comparison, and I'm finding in Best Served Cold that Monza suffers a little bit from that.
She does go through a journey, Pharaoh, but she learns the cost of revenge, but it's not as interesting.
It's not the same, it's just, I feel like when we're comparing the grandness, I guess, of the journeys of everybody, Pharaoh's kind of does like, whereas other people go like, whoa, and then kind of come back down. So in comparison, her felt a little bit lackluster.
The wife of Jazal, I'm like, oh man. I think even Joe has gone like, I kind of regret how I wrote that. Sorry, guys,
Yeah, I don't know. That was an interesting dynamic at the end of the book. But
I felt so bad for Jazal after a while. I'm just like, God, he's getting browbeat by his wife and getting browbeat by Baez and getting browbeat by basically anyone he tries to talk to. It's like, oh man. I was going to mention something about Jazal, but I won't mention it because you're reading Best Served Cold right now. So
yes, no potential spoilers.
I will not. But
thank you.
I will not. Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not saying his female characters are bad. They're fine.
Yeah.
But, again, just not as interesting as, like, Giselle and Logan and Glocta.
Glocta. I agree.
No, it's just, like, they're not bad characters, but, it's just kind of, or Baez, even. I mean, I kind of grew to despise Baez after a while, but he's still an interesting character, nonetheless.
He's very interesting. He's a very, very interesting character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like when I saw an interview with Joe, and he was like, I remember reading this, like, foreword of Lord of the Rings, and Tolkien was saying something like, oh, if my book was an allegory of World War II, Gandalf would have used the ring. And then Joe was like, that's interesting.
Yeah, I could see that.
And I'm like,
so you said... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I thought that was interesting.
That definitely is interesting. You mentioned earlier that you're a Neil Gaiman fan, so are there particular books in his catalog that you gravitate more towards?
Well, my favorite of his novels is American Gods. I see you have
Mine
that
too.
There.
Mine too, yeah.
I do enjoy Ocean. The Ocean at the End of the Lane. That's pretty good. And
what a trippy book.
Coraline, I enjoy. I read that growing up. And I love his. I'm a comic book fan, so I love the Sandman.
Sandman, yeah. Did you like the adaptation that they did?
I loved it. I thought it was.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
It was pretty accurate.
Yeah, no, it captures the tone very well. It might actually be my favorite Gaiman adaptation, aside from Coraline, so far anyway.
Good Omens is definitely mine. I have a very soft spot for Good Omens. Yet. Oh, it's so worth watching. But I also have like a little soft spot for that because I actually saw Neil Gaiman at a talk a few years ago, and it was while they had just finished filming Good Omens, or they were still in the process of filming it. And while he was giving this speech, he read us a deleted scene that didn't make it in. And I looked at my husband and I was like, if that's what didn't make it in, then what did make it in is going to be excellent. And it was so, so good. It was just so in keeping with the book. It was so fantastic. I love it so much. I'm excited to see what the second season's going to look like.
Yeah, no, I've not actually read Good Omens. Like, I know what it is. And,
we should. It's amazing. If you like satirical stories, then it'll be for you. If you don't, then I would highly avoid. But if you like First Law, you generally like humor in your story, I would think.
Yeah. Also love Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as well.
Yep.
I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, you should try Pratchett if you enjoy Hitchhikers," and I'm like, "Yeah, someday." Just a lot of his stuff.
Yeah. I read Hitchhikers a few months ago for the first time, and I thought it was fine. I liked it, but not enough to keep going with the series. I do really like Terry Pratchett. So I think they're both very good, and they are both satirical. I just find that Pratchett is probably, I don't want to say that Douglas Adams isn't witty, because he is, but I'm just more in line with the humor that Pratchett has.
Well, I like the absurdity of Douglas Adams' stuff.
Yeah.
And I've heard Pratchett is similar, but, I'll have to see when I get there.
It is.
I don't know where to start with Discord.
Yeah, I mean, Alan has a really good video on where to start with Discworld, but I had started with book 1, and then Alan told me, he's like, you actually shouldn't start with book 1, you should pick another. And I ended up starting with Going Postal, which I really liked. But
a lot of people tell me to start with either Mort.
Mort is a good one to start if you want to do the death storyline, because that's the first one of death, and then I think the next one is Reaper Man. But it really just depends on what arc you want to do with this.
The Guards one. The
Guards is the City Watch, I believe, the beginning of the City Watch one. That tends to be Alan's favorite, I know that. And like most people that read Guards, I don't think I've ever seen a review of Guards that is less than 4 stars. So most people generally regard it as one of the better.
I have a friend who I've only met like one person who doesn't like Pratchett, so it's not like...
Yeah.
Most people I met like him.
So. He's so funny, and he's just so smart. It's hard not to appreciate it.
Now, I have seen some stuff from him that I thought was funny. Like, there's this one picture he's in where he's, like, wearing a shirt. He's like, J.K. Rowling couldn't make it, and, like, Philip Pullman got sick. Hi, I'm Terry Pratchett. You know? Okay.
Bless Terry Pratchett. I'm sad that we won't get any more brilliant books from him. It was taken too soon. So it's a bummer, but yeah.
But yeah, no, I like Neil Gaiman. He has he combines that kind of whimsy, but like with darker subject matter.
Yeah, he definitely has a darker undertone than Pratchett. And also, he's typically not, I don't want to say he's not funny, because he is. His book, Nancy Boys, I thought was absolutely hysterical. But
I've heard bits of the Lenny Henry audiobook of that book, and I really liked what I heard of it.
yeah, so he is very funny. I just don't think he's as funny, possibly. He's not as satirical generally in his overall works as
Well, there's some
Pratchett is.
hilarious bits in American Gods,
There are.
like Marilyn Monroe, the TV god lady. It's
Oh
like,
my gosh, yeah.
Want to see Lucy's tits? Like, that shit makes me laugh.
Media
I'm 12
was
years
so
old.
funny. I loved Media. She
I'm
was
12
my
years
favorite
old.
of the new God books. Yeah, I mean, I thought that was. I loved American Gods. The adaptation was an absolute travesty, so I like refused to even acknowledge that it exists.
I liked the trailers, and then I saw it. I was like, it's okay.
I have so many issues with that show.
But I remember I read the book. I was senior year of high school, and I was blown away by it. And it's one of those books like I will argue with people over about it.
Oh yeah, I love it.
I'll throw down.
I just
About
love
American
it. I mean,
Gods.
the way he incorporates mythology is brilliantly
It's so
done.
good. So
Yeah,
good.
if you don't know a lot of different cultures' mythology, you can still read it. But if you do know it, it just makes it so fun when you're trying to guess and figure out who people are. Like I had
Even
a
goes to like
blast
American
reading it.
folklore, like Johnny Appleseed. I'm like, what? He went there? Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. He just did such a good job at incorporating it, and I love the fact too that he's not American.
Yeah,
I
I'm
was
just
like,
like,
this is great.
I'm always mad because I'm like, how come the English can write better about our culture than we can? Like, come on, fellow Yankees, do something. Come on.
I think sometimes it's having that outsider's perspective that we're able to see things that natives can't necessarily.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you never know.
No, I love American Gods, and it's one of those I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to read another book as great as that from Neil Gaiman, sadly. Maybe. There's still
I don't
some
know.
I
I
need to
mean,
try.
The Norse mythology book is really, really good. I really enjoyed
Like,
that one a
I have a
lot.
Nancy Boys and, like, Graveyard book over there, and Neverwhere. I haven't read those yet, so...
I have mixed feelings on the Graveyard book. I didn't love it. Again, I'm in the minority for people not liking the Graveyard book, and I actually DNF'd Neverwhere, which I never DNF books. So I don't remember why I DNF'd it other than the fact that I really was having a hard time getting into it. And I was like well over 100 pages in. I usually always give a book at least 50 pages. And I was like, okay, I love Neil Gaiman. Like, you have to push through this. And I just couldn't force myself.
Not
So
every author's gonna, like, not every book's gonna do it for you. I mean, I like
No.
China Mieville, and I'm reading Embassy Town right now, and I'm not really loving it, so, you know.
yeah, I am going to go back and try it at some point to see if it was just wrong book, wrong time type thing. But
Yeah,
time will
I
tell.
mean,
I
I've heard
see the
Neverwhere.
cat there.
Yes, my kitty.
Oh, my kitty's the same color. It's my favorite.
Yeah, she opened my door. I hope you don't mind the toilet.
It's rare that it's a female that color, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, he's good. But yeah, what are some other fantasy books you enjoy? Or
I really love I just started here in December, so that's been a big investment. I have liked a good chunk of them, but I haven't liked all of them.
mm-hmm.
Are you good? I was seeing like some flashing.
Yeah, I saw some flashes too. Could you repeat what you said?
You're fine. I really like A Song of Ice and Fire, and since December I've started reading The Cosmere and Brandon Sanderson for the first time.
Oh,
So that's
yeah.
been fun.
Everyone loves Brandon
Um,
Sanderson, or maybe not everyone, but I know a lot of people who like him. He's it's interesting about him. He's never really appealed to me in terms of like I want to read him at some point, you know?
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'd be a bad fantasy fan if I didn't read him, like at least try him out. But like his brand has never really appealed to me in terms of
That's the thing. He's not
I
for
look
everybody.
in fantasy.
No, he's definitely not for everyone. Like, my husband has zero desire to really read anything in the Cosmere.
I do want to try Mistborn though, because I actually like the idea of that series.
That was the first one I read of his, and it definitely was the one that pulled me in. However, I feel like I really enjoyed Elantris, which was my next book of his that I read. So I probably would have been pulled in either way. I find the whole concept of the Cosmere really interesting and fascinating, so it's something that I'm going to continue to read. But, like, I didn't love The Way of Kings, and that seems to be most people's one of their favorite books of Sanderson. Like, my personal favorite so far has been Warbreaker, and I really loved Tress of the Emerald Sea, which was Secret Project #1. So those have been fun, but I read a lot of standalone stuff too, and occasionally I'll throw in some YA just to kind of mix it up a little bit.
I mean, if you like Cosmere, you might like Michael Moorcock. He does a similar thing with like the multiverse, so you know, it's like the first multiverse before Brandon Sanderson showed up. But you know, yeah, I see some of the books that are behind you. You see like Harry Potter. I do enjoy
Harry Potter. Love Harry Potter. I feel like it is still a strong part of my identity.
What's your house thing? What's your house?
Oh, Ravenclaw, without question.
Oh, I'm Hufflepuff.
Ah, nice. I live with a Slytherin, and all of my family are Slytherin except me. I'm the only Ravenclaw. So it's always funny whenever they get together. I'm like, I'm the sole person. But whenever we talk about Harry Potter, like, my mom thought she was definitely a Ravenclaw and took the test 3 times, and 3 times it came back Slytherin. And I was like, it is what it is. You're Slytherin.
Well, that's kind of that's fun. I feel like Hufflepuff gets a bad rep because we don't really do anything, and like I feel like there's
more of you than anyone else.
What's the best thing Hufflepuff's known for? You got a guy who got killed off in the 4th year.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like people who are true fans of Harry Potter know that Hufflepuffs are very loyal, they're patient, they believe in justice. Like, those are all really admirable qualities. And oddly enough, when I went to Potterworld a few years ago, there were more Hufflepuffs repped than any other house, like, by a lot. So there's definitely a lot of you, and they wear that pride proudly, you know.
Well,
I love it.
That's nice. That makes me feel better. Because I'm like, it's like, oh, Slytherin and Gryffindor are always getting the most attention.
I know. Ravenclaw, like, gets the least amount of love. I feel like the colors aren't even right on a lot of this stuff, which always drives me absolutely nuts because the colors are technically blue and bronze, but it ends up becoming blue and white or blue and silver all the time, and I'm like, nope. And the raven is not the actual logo, so it's just, they've changed a lot, which is a bit annoying, but it's fine.
Oh, dang it. Movie Flame, you ever watched him before?
Who? I'm sorry.
Have you ever watched Movie Flame before on YouTube?
No, I haven't.
Oh, he does a bunch of Harry Potter content, so
I'll have to check him out.
He also does Hunger Game content, and I'm not really into the Hunger Games. I like the first book just fine. And
yeah, I read the first book and then wasn't super keen to keep going. It was fine, but my degrees are in classical history, and I was so up to my ears with mythology at that point that I was like, I really don't have time for another myth retelling, which it basically was for the first one. It was a retelling of the Minotaur and the Labyrinth and everything else, but liked the movies. I thought they were fine.
Yeah, no, I'm not. No, it's just like. So you're a big Alan fan, I'm sure, because he's a big history nut. Because I watch his channel. He's a big history guy. He's got me to want to try.
That's how I found him. Yeah, that's how I found him. I think he showed up initially into my algorithm because of the fact that he had done something with Bookborn. And
Mm.
then I saw that he had done a review on this book, Augustus, which I actually just finished yesterday or 2 days ago.
I've
And
heard of this.
he his review got me to read it, and I just loved it so 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 much. But love the way that Alan tackles history. He's a Latin teacher, so we definitely have the ancient world in common. But love that he can teach people on YouTube about ancient history.
Yeah, no, I watched his Sharp review and I'm like, I want to read that. It sounds fun.
Yeah, Alan like makes people want to read, which I genuinely
I
appreciate.
have a
Like when I
weird
think
thing.
people,
I like and hate war. Like I love reading about war, but excuse me a minute.
hey, fine.
What's up? Oh, okay. Just talking to my mom.
You're fine.
Probably the audio hurt me, but anyway, continue what you were saying.
What was I saying? I was talking about Alan. Then you said you liked reading about war, but you didn't like war.
Oh, yeah, I have a weird thing. Like, I like reading about war, but like war is like a concept I don't love. I don't know.
I have a hard time with military fantasy and just fighting in general in books. Like, I find that it's my least favorite part of almost any book that has it. Like with Abercrombie, I really didn't like the way that Abercrombie wrote fight scenes. I don't like the way Sanderson writes fight scenes. And I sat back and I thought afterwards, I was like, maybe I just don't like fight scenes. But
Well, I love that.
I don't
So
know.
I'm like, it's. I was about to say, man, that's one of the best parts of Joe Abercrombie. That was another thing with Tori. She was like, the war scenes were like okay, and I was just like, yeah, it's like, I was like,
Tori and
that's
I
all.
share a lot of the same opinion, apparently, for this final book. So, yes. I
Yeah,
haven't seen her final. I watched part of the final book review.
I did.
I actually no, I watched the whole thing. I'm just blanking on parts of it because I was like
I
running after
did.
my toddler.
I mean, I
Well,
disagreed with it, but it was good. She got me to want to read the Rob J. Hayes book. Can't name it at the moment. It's like the Asian one. Or that's really very terrible way of describing it. But
I'm not sure what that. It's not Shogun, is it?
no.
Okay, I really don't know because I know that like a lot of people have been doing Shogun read-alongs lately, but I don't know.
I mean, she likes covering like indie fantasy, and I am really terrible at like covering that. Except for that like thing is blown up.
Hmm.
So Never Die.
Yeah,
That's what
I
it's
would
called.
like to start reading it.
Never Die.
Definitely like it.
That's what it's
Sorry.
called. Never Die. That's what it's called.
Mm. Yeah, I want to get into reading more indie, but I just haven't really had much of a chance. I read one indie book so far this year, I think, so it's only been one.
I do hope I have Beyond Redemption over there, which I guess was an indie book at first. Hoping to read that before the year's over at least. So I got time.
Yeah. I know with SPFBO, it's been a really big thing lately, and I think that's great. Like, the more indie authors that can get their work out there, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean I'm kind of a. This is kind of sad, but I'm kind of a contrarian. So like every time someone's like, "Here's this like new thing we're doing," and I'm just like, "No."
I'm fine with it as long as it means more books. More
Yeah.
quality books. That's the
Well, I do
main
want to read
thing.
Never Die because it sounds like a cool book. So I'm like, I'll read that.
I'll have to check it out.
Or it's just
Yeah.
You also like Game of Thrones. I see Song of Ice and Fire back there.
I
Um,
do. I haven't finished the series. I've read the first three books, and then I've read half of Fire and Blood. But
oh
the
boy, that's probably the best
yeah,
part. Sad to say about Fire and Blood. That first half.
yeah, probably. I mean, there's
Second
definitely
half is
interesting
just a
characters in it.
drag. I'm just like God. Ugh.
See, the thing is I like history,
Oh, I love
so
history. It's just he gets to the stuff that I'm not as interested in. By the
it's
end, I'm like,
fair.
oh man, come on. And
It's
then he kind
fair.
of redeems it with the Dance of the Dragons. I'm like, oh, okay.
All animal. Anytime there's like animal injury, animal death, animal fighting. Like I have a really hard time with it.
That's fair.
So
That's fair.
yeah,
I
when we
don't love
watched
I should note I don't like animals getting hurt. I'm just I don't like that.
no, but like when we watched House of the Dragon, did you watch the adaptation?
Oh yeah, it was great. Or I enjoyed it anyway.
So the final episode, like I knew what was happening. Like I knew what was coming. And still like had a visceral reaction where I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to continue to watch the show. Because I was like, I
Also,
feel bad about people dying, but animals dying, I can't handle it. I just can't.
that's me with kids. I have a hard time even when it's like fake. I have a
Yeah.
hard time watching kids die.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like I find that too now, especially that I'm a parent. I'm like, ooh, like it's just it hits home differently. But with animals, because like I've always had animals, I've always had pets, I'm like, oh, this is just like it's too much. I just can't. And I'm like, it's not even like an actual animal. Like dragons don't exist. They have not existed, sadly. But I have a really difficult
Well,
time.
you say sadly, but I think dragons would be pretty terrifying if they were real.
I mean, yeah, but they'd also be kind of awesome. It's like dinosaurs, right?
Yeah.
It's like you might not necessarily want to have lived at the same time as them, but it would be really cool to have seen one from a great
Yeah.
distance.
No, I get you. I mean, I get the appeal of something like Jurassic Park. It's like, oh, like a theme park with with
Yeah.
dinosaurs. Like, that would be cool, Like,
Yeah.
of course. That's just
Terrifying,
human
but cool.
nature.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, no, it's a weird, now I think of dinosaurs. I'm thinking of Alan's, he covers a guy called John Williams, and every time he mentions him, it's the scene from Jurassic Park.
John Williams is the one that wrote Augustus.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's exactly it. That was the review that like did me in. I was like, what? When I saw it. So yeah, I have to do a double take usually when I'm in a Discord and I see John Williams and like not the composer.
Hey, I mean, he did the music or the John Williams composer did the music for Harry Potter, so.
Oh yeah, he's done the music for like him and what am I saying?
Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer, yeah, have done the music for like everything. There is a quiz that you can do on YouTube where someone has taken audio clips and it's like you have 15 seconds to guess if it's Hans Zimmer or John Williams that has done it. And it's super great because you can see just how many iconic films that the two of them have composed
If it's hummable, it's probably Williams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I see it anyway. Yeah, no, I actually just watched the new Indiana Jones movie the other day, and
Is it out already?
yeah,
Okay.
I thought
I
it was
completely lost track of time.
I thought it was okay, but that John Williams score was
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to beat anything that has a John Williams score. Like, it really, really is. Like, we'll be playing games, and I'll just put on the Harry Potter soundtrack in the background.
I wonder if John Williams I think he's dead now, but I wonder if he was
No,
alive.
he's not. He's definitely not.
No, not the composer John Williams, the writer John Williams.
The writer is deceased, yes.
Oh, well, I wonder if the writer John Williams, like, went to, like, I don't know if he was alive when, like, Jaws came out, and he just, like, sat in the theater and he was watching it, having a good time, and it says, just,
well, I
music
know,
by John Williams at the end. He's just like, what?
I know Augustus came out in the 1970s, so I figure I don't know how long ago he died, but he was obviously still publishing books in the 1970s.
Yeah. No, I watched Joanna, and she talks about John Williams.
Yep, love Joanna.
I'm not doing the John Williams joke. I'm not doing it. But yeah, no. God. I'm like I knew he was gonna make some joke about the composer in there.
It's hard not to.
I know. Oh, that was Bookborn who liked Peter Pan a lot, and I was like, wow, really? I remember watching the animated movie when I was a kid, and, and I watched Hook when I was a kid. So I was thinking like, oh, it's kind of hokey, but it's good, it's fun. But
yeah.
She was like, man, this is really good, and I'm like, hmm?
Yeah, a lot of people really like it. I know Leanna from Leanna's Library and Murphy both also really love Peter Pan. I'm about halfway into it. I got distracted with stuff, and I need
I
to
saw
get back
Peter
to
Pan
it.
up
But
there. That's why I mentioned it.
yeah, exactly. I'm halfway through it. It's a fun read. It's an easy read.
You have a handsome bookshelf, I must say.
Thank you.
Not looking like my shit back there.
We actually just got these. My father-in-law made them. He is a carpenter,
Oh,
so
that's wonderful.
we were in desperate need of bookshelves, so we put in a request, and he really came through.
Yeah. Yeah, I see a lot of books behind you. Like, is that Malazan back there? I haven't read Malazan, but
I have one Malazan. That's it. I haven't started it yet. It's going to be potentially this year. I'm a little intimidated to start Malazan. I'm not gonna lie.
I am
Malazan,
the
or
same way. I've
yeah,
heard
I'm
there's a lot
like,
of military stuff, so that probably is not appealing to
might not
you.
be the best for me. But I like to try pretty much everyone in the fantasy sphere. The only person that I'm like super not into and probably won't go to is Stephen King. Because I don't like horror for the most part, and I know that the
Okay.
Dark Tower series isn't really horror, but it's not really my vibe.
Yeah, King goes to some weird places.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I like his novella. I love The Shawshank Redemption. I've read it many, many times, and I think it's beautifully written.
I mean, he's
But in
written
terms,
great, like, non-horror stories. So,
yeah, and that's the thing. He's a very good writer. He's just the one that I'm like, I don't really want to make time for that in my reading schedule. So, yeah.
yeah. Like, maybe don't read, like, his horror stuff if you're not into horror.
Yeah, no, I
So,
definitely won't. I don't do horror at all.
I do enjoy Stephen King, though. Like, Green Mile,
Mm, yeah, yeah,
Shawshank.
yeah. Shawshank is just so good.
I love the movie, too. I rewatched it a
hmm
few months ago, and I was like, man, it's so
It's one of the best movies ever. It's such a good film.
good. It's so good.
That year of cinema is like the best year of cinema because you had Shawshank Redemption, Pulp Fiction, Quiz Show, um, Forrest Gump, and
I love
then
Forrest Gump.
Four Weddings and a Funeral. Like Four
Now,
Weddings and a Funeral is garbage compared to the rest of them, in my opinion. But those four, I'm like, this is you can't top that. Like you just can't.
like, Forrest Gump, I love that movie.
Yeah,
And a lot
it's
of
great.
people, it's kind of popular to bash that movie now. And that makes me really
What?
sad.
I think it's a great movie.
It's a great movie. Or I thought it was.
I highly enjoy it. But for me, my favorite of that bunch is probably Pulp Fiction. So,
Just Leon the Professional. But that's an action movie. I enjoy those. But, Shawshank's a great film. And a great book, too.
yep.
The adaptation's pretty close, so.
He helped write the screenplay, which is why it's so good and so spot on. When the author is involved, it tends to be
If
a
I
generally
remember, it's
better
one of his
adaptation.
favorite, it's one of his favorite, adaptations of his work.
I should think so. It's so good. So,
Yeah. But yeah, it's one of the trends that's interested me about like fantasy booktube is there's people who've been reading Cormac McCarthy. He's one of my favorite
yeah,
authors.
I've been noticing that a lot lately.
And he's one of my favorite authors, so I kind of get to be that guy in the
Yeah.
corner, being like, I was reading him before it was cool, you know.
I have not read anything by him, so I don't know if he'd really be for me.
Yeah, I was about to say he's an
Um,
acquired taste for one, and he tends to talk about like really dark subject matter.
Yeah, that's generally what I've gathered. So I feel like he's probably not up my alley, but I'm happy other people resonate with his stuff.
Then again, me, I'm like that dark, twisted stuff. So
Fits in well, I guess, with Abercrombie and everything else, right?
yeah, I mean, Abercrombie, I got him over there, and I also have oh, some other stuff. I like Game of Thrones too, but but I'd say First Law is darker than Game of Thrones.
I don't know. The Red Wedding is pretty dark.
That is true. In the books,
Um,
like the show, like that, it was toned down. I'm just
it
saying.
was.
In the book, oh man, it's still messed up in the show, but the book is
Yeah,
like two
neither
times
one
worse.
is good. I remember where I was when I saw that episode. and I knew what was coming, and I sat there with my mouth hanging open for like 5 minutes after the credits. I was like, oh my God, that's so terrible. Again, though, for me, animal death, the worst part of that, because I knew that poor direwolf.
Those poor direwolves, they're always getting the worst of it. Like, one of them gets executed, another one gets murdered and stuffed on its owner's head. Mm-hmm. Another one runs off. Actually, I think Nymeria got the easy way out.
Nymeria, yeah, was the easiest one. But I have noticed now whenever I do... I tried listening to the audiobook of it not long ago, but the narrator is such garbage that I only made it probably like 100 pages in, I guess would be the equivalent of the read. But Lady dies, and I was like... Fast forward through this part. I don't do animal death if I know it's coming. I just hate it. I hate it so much. But I feel like Game of Thrones is still a bit darker than First Law.
Yeah, no, it goes in some really messed up places, like Ramsay.
Yeah, a lot of torture, but I mean, Glokta does that too, so...
Yeah, but Glokta, he doesn't really enjoy it.
Not so much, but it's also tackled differently, I feel like, in that there's more humor with Abercrombie. So it kind of feels less severe, I feel like, for me than Game of Thrones. But
yeah, no, I mean, First Law feels more gritty, I guess. Game of Thrones
I can see that.
Like, Game of Thrones is gritty, sure, but there's still, there's almost an absurdity to some of the violent parts.
Yeah.
Like Red Wedding,
he's stuffed... too much sexual violence, too, in Game of Thrones for my liking.
A guy stuffs a dog's head on Rob. I'm like, you can't get any more ridiculous than that. I don't mean to laugh, that's not funny, but it's just like, there's like a weird absurdity to it. In First Law, it's more like, gritty and... It feels like it could happen. First Law feels more like it could... Not that, Game of Thrones couldn't happen, but, First Law, that feels more plausible.
Yeah, I totally get that. That's fair.
I don't know. And that's not, to disrespect Game of Thrones or anything. I enjoy Game of Thrones, but,
Yeah, I like them both.
Who's your favorite Game of Thrones character?
Favorite Game of Thrones character? I don't know. That's a hard one. I'm tempted to say Olenna from, if we're talking about the show.
I do enjoy Olenna.
Yeah, I love a witty character.
Also, she just puts Cersei down, and that just makes me happy.
I also really loved...
I fucking hate Cersei.
I loved Tywin. I loved Charles Dance as Tywin in the show.
He's so good. I mean, as a human being, I despise Tywin Lannister, but as a character, I find him really fascinating.
In the book too, I loved Tywin. I thought he was a really, really interesting character. I'm trying to think it's kind of basic to say, I really liked the Jon chapters. I found what was going on with the Night's Watch really interesting. So that, for me, was always appealing. I found that Cersei and Sansa's characters were awful. Those, for me, were the ones that I always wished...
I don't think Cersei's bad character. I just hate that bitch.
Yeah, I mean, I just found her chapters to be boring for the most part.
No offense, but I hate Cersei. She's just...
I also really liked Stannis's stuff. So I liked book Stannis a lot. Show Stannis was a very poor representation, I felt, of book Stannis. So I like Stannis quite a bit. So it would probably be Jon, Tywin, Stannis. it's an odd combination of people, but I'm a bit
basic. I quite enjoy Tyrion.
The thing is I love Tyrion too, but I feel that the show also really altered the Tyrion character. Tyrion in the books is not a good dude. He's just not. And in the show, he is very much that, because they try to make him this antithesis to the other Lannisters. Oh, I'm completely forgetting. Jamie's my favorite character. Jamie's arc in the books is so
It's
good.
weird because the Lannisters are generally like detestable, but I find them like some of the most interesting characters.
Well, yeah, that's partially why. Because as you said, they're nuanced characters.
Yeah, like but yeah, Tyrion, Jaime, I enjoy them quite a bit. Really hated what they did to Jaime at the end of the show.
It's such garbage. Like honestly. It's such
like you've been
trash.
building up this arc and then you just do that. Like, come on, come on.
I mean, Jaime has this massive redemptive arc, and you take it away in an episode, and I was like, that was 8 years wasted because we could have just kept Jaime the exact same, and it would have made no difference. Yeah.
But yeah, Tyrion, because I don't know. I find that his ability to not let people put him down because of his size is very admirable.
Yep.
Unless
I
it's his dad.
The scene between him and Jon in the book is exactly what it is in the show, where he says to take the label of bastard and like make it his armor because the world will use it against him, and if he doesn't let them, then he's taken their power away. Like, it's a great scene.
Yeah, it's good. And also I like Tywin, or I don't want to say I like Tywin. As a human being, I absolutely detest Tywin Lannister. But as a character, I find him very fascinating.
So good.
Because
he's brilliant.
It's basically like, there's a book called Things Fall Apart. It's about this guy called Okonkwo. And his dad was kind of a, lazy bum kind of guy. And Okonkwo decides, I'm not going to be that. And he becomes basically like a monster. And that's basically the same thing with Tywin Lannister. Like, he is a monster.
A bit, yeah.
But he's interesting. He's an interesting monster, I think.
I agree.
And it's like, I like how it's almost like everything he touches, he destroys it.
Mm-hmm.
Even in his own family. Like,
The line about his death is one of my absolute favorites from the whole series, that in the end it turns out like Tywin Lannister did not in fact shit gold, is like one of my all-time favorite lines. I love it so much.
It's a good comeuppance for his character, because,
100%.
I mean, he dies in a really humiliating way from his son,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a terrible way to go out.
Typically, taking a shit with an arrow in you is not the best way to die.
Yeah, no. But yeah, no, it's weird. It's like, I shouldn't like the Lannisters, but I do. I also like the Starks, too.
I think the Starks tend to be most people's favorites, which is fine.
What, you don't like the Starks? Don't like
I do, but in terms of the character house that I identify with, I would 100% be a Targaryen. Like, there's no question.
I thought you were going to say Lannister. I'm like, why?
That's my husband. My husband is 100% a Lannister. Like, we have this joke that I'm like, if you were a character from the Game of Thrones world, I'm like, you're Tywin. Like, that's the way your brain is wired.
That's kind of terrifying, but...
It is, but it's also, he's very intelligent and he's good at what he does, so he's Tywin.
Okay. I was about to say, that's kind of a terrifying thought, but alright.
We'll make it work.
Well, I mean, don't die during birth. That might be a good thing. Don't do that. Because, I mean...
Not so much.
Yeah. Yeah, Cersei, she's just, ugh.
Lena Headey, though, did such a good job with Cersei.
There's some people who think of her as like a girl boss type character. I'm like, no! She is awful!
I have to disagree on that one, but I do think the way that Lena Headey portrayed Cersei was perfection. Like,
oh my
her facial acting, I used to say this every season. I was like, the fact that Lena Headey hasn't won an Emmy just for her face is outrageous. Like, because
she is really
so
good.
good.
Every time I'd see like her smug face, I'd be like, oh.
Oh yeah,
I mean, that's
like,
a good actress.
Intentional RBF, if ever there was one, and she does it so well. Like, Lena Headey is just resting bitch face, RBF.
Oh.
It's just like she's a gem. I love Lena Headey. I thought that she was the perfect Cersei. I don't think there was anyone that could have played Cersei better.
Oh my gosh, yeah, she was very good, and like, I'm like, she's a really good actor, but I fucking hate Cersei.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's always my tell if like someone has done a really good job. I'm like, how much do I hate that person? It means that they've done their job. But there were certain characters and like stuff in the show, like Peter Baelish for me. I think the character
I don't think
Peter
the writers
Baelish
knew what to do with him after his
his accent changes over the course of 7 seasons. In the first season, he's British, and then by the time he dies, he's fully Irish. I'm like, there is very different approaches to this character, and I'm not sure why we've done this, but yeah, it was just an odd choice.
I don't think they knew what to do with him after the thing with Ned, and like they had a good arc with him and Sansa going, and then they're like, let's give her to Ramsay. Why?
That was a big change from the book. So it wasn't very smart.
You know?
I think that the creators of that show did some very unintelligent things, and that was probably one of the earlier tells that it wasn't going to end very well.
Yeah, you know, I was like, season 5 was okay, and then like season 6 was like that hope spot. I'm like, yes, like this is we're back in business. And then 7 and 8 came out, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, a lot of questionable stuff happened in 7, and then I will say though, in season 8, the second episode where they knight Brienne is one of the best episodes of the series. Like, it's an excellent episode because it was dialogue based, and when they had those episodes that were primarily dialogue, they were very well done.
I like the Brienne and Jaime dynamic too, so you know.
Yeah, it's so good. And then they had that battle at Winterfell, which none of that made sense. Like, every one of them should have died. And then it just continued to be a dumpster fire all the way to the end.
I remember where I was when I watched the final season of Game of Thrones. I was in this house, in my living room, watching it. And I'm just like, what are they doing? You know, like every couple of minutes.
I have a hard time now that I find I can't go back and rewatch the show because I know how it ends, and the ending is so disappointing that I'm like, I'm not investing my time rewatching this
like
because there's no satisfaction at the end.
And then like the rest of it is like,
I didn't love the second season. The second season out of all of the seasons is my least favorite. I found that they changed key things from the book that I didn't love, so not my favorite, but it's better than season 8. So.
Like, I am kind of disappointed they didn't go with the Tyrion arc where he basically becomes the monster they think he is, pretty much.
Yeah.
I wish they'd have done that because I really like how they did that in the book, even though I think it kind of drags a little bit.
I mean, that was part of the whole thing, right? Is that like Jaime starts out as this monster and Tyrion is more a sympathetic character, and they kind of do a switch.
Mm-hmm.
And the show was like, we're going to keep Tyrion really good because he's sympathetic, and we want people to empathize with that and like Tyrion all the way through to the end. And then we're going to have Jaime seem like he's going to be redemptive, and then we're going to take that away. It's just...
I wish they had the balls to keep with Jaime's, you know, because for a minute there I thought it was like Jaime was going to, you know, the prophecy, and then they're like, fuck that bullshit.
We, like... My husband and I used to have really in-depth conversations about the prophecies in that book, and I was like, okay, we got to talk about, like, Azor Ahai and who the prince that is promised was, and I mean, it was Jon. Like, it had to be Jon, because the fact that he is born with the salt from the tears of his mom, he's born under the star with the hilt of Ned's sword, like, all these things, and I was so geared up for Azor Ahai, and then nothing. But George R. R. Martin has also said that, like, prophecies can be meaningless, and I was like, is it going to be meaningless in the book, George? Or is it only going to be meaningless in the show? Because the show has failed us in so many ways that I'm hoping it won't be meaningless in the books. But...
who knows? Yeah. I don't. And I don't think he's going to finish these freaking books.
I don't get my hopes up anymore. I just don't. Like, the last time a new book came out,
when the show
I was
started.
in my undergraduate degree, and I'm like, that was a long time ago.
I was 10 years old.
There you go.
I didn't watch until I was like 14, 14, in that area.
Yeah.
Until the 4th season came out, I'm like, oh man, where was this at? I love this, you know?
That's the best.
No, it's also Charles Dance was, I should repeat this, so good.
Oh, so good.
Like, that dude he exhibits like authority and menace in that role.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like
he-
you want to
he-
listen to him when he speaks.
When I imagine Tywin, I know Tywin looks a little different in the books, but like, I hear Dance because
Yeah.
when I think of Tywin, I think of him. You know, it's just like
Yeah, 100%.
Like-
He's very synonymous now with the character in my mind that I'm like, oh yeah, that's Tywin.
yeah.
There's no separating the two of them. Like with other characters, I can a little bit, mostly with Tyrion, because his descriptor in the book, especially after the battle at Blackwater, is that he's very disfigured, even more so. And I'm like, he doesn't really look like he does in the show.
Mhm.
But Charles Dance, I'm like, that's Tywin.
Yeah. You could tell the writers had a great time writing his character. They really liked Tywin.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, dang
His
it.
dynamic, too, with Lady Olenna's dynamic was just perfection. Like, the two of them played off of each other so well that I was like, they really, again, they couldn't have
It's
cast
like
anyone
watching
better for her.
Michelangelo make the David.
Exactly. It's just a masterpiece happening before your eyes. Like, I feel like the people that were on set with them were just marveling at watching these two people and
Yeah,
being
their
like,
mouths were open. Like,
yeah,
oh my god.
this is the peak of my career. Like, it will never get better than it just did
I'm
today.
gonna share this with
kind of
my
thing.
kids.
Yeah,
When
I
they're
mean,
older.
it just doesn't get better than that. They're both so
like
good.
I said earlier, I love Olenna. She's always like putting down Cersei, and she sees right through her, and I love it. Give me more.
Yeah, Diana
8
Rigg
hours.
did such a good job with Lady Olenna.
Oh my god.
So, love them. I thought she did well with all of the people she acted with. And the other person who, like, I liked what they did with them, who wasn't a full-time character, was Oberyn. Like, I really, really liked Oberyn a lot.
Pedro
So,
Pascal,
book
man.
Oberyn, yeah, and show Oberyn. Like, his scene with Tyrion where he goes and sits with him in the prison cell and says, I will be your champion, like, is still one of the best scenes I've ever seen. I'm like, it's so
He
good.
was so close too.
It's so good.
He was
So,
so
yeah.
close to the mount. I also really like the Hound. I forgot to mention that.
The Hound is great.
Because
Do you
don't know,
like
like I
Hound?
said, I have a fondness for broken characters.
I mean, I don't blame you. The Hound is just a good character, so it makes
Yeah,
sense.
it's kind of like Glocta, except he's not, physically broken.
Yeah.
I do think it's great in the first Law when he gets attacked by Frost, and he pulls out the.
Oh my god,
and
yeah.
he
I
pulls
did
out the
not
sword
see that coming.
out of his hand.
Yeah, I did not see that coming at all.
It sucks
it was
because
one of
he's
the
like
few
he's
surprises.
sad. Like he genuinely
Yeah.
like valued them.
I have this, I think it's from reading a bunch of Sanderson lately, but I have this like investigatory way of reading that like I'm looking for clues all the time and I'm like, what's gonna happen? And I treat every book like it's a mystery, even though it's not. And when I was reading First Law, I was like, I was doing that, but that still totally caught me off guard. I was like, oh my god, like Frost and Severard, like no. So yeah, it was a strong reaction.
Yeah, and this is like I don't know if I should laugh or I should be like, oh, but I love how Pharaoh just spares Severard because Severard loves his birds. And I'm like,
Yep.
what the fuck? Hold on a second.
Yep.
Pharaoh. You're always threatening to murder people, and you're always like I hate everybody. I'm gonna kill everybody. She hisses at people, and you decide to spare a dude's life
Yep.
because of birds.
Arrow. Can't understand her.
I probably sound like
can't.
Alan, but that's one of the reasons I really like Alan's channel. I'm like, yo, and also there's a part of me I'm like, oh shit, he's probably gonna be who I am when I'm like 40. Because I also go on those weird. I also go on those like side tangents about like stuff that just does not matter at all. Like,
but
Pharaoh,
it matters to you,
like
and
Pharaoh
you're a reader.
sparing a dude over his birds. I'm like, are you serious right now?
I could hear Alan having strong opinions on that. Yes, that is true.
Are you kidding me? Like, for real, dude?
Yeah, it's funny. I forgot about that actually.
The guy gives a sob story about his birds, and that stops it. I'm like, dude, bruh.
Oh, I hear you.
Pharaoh's a weird character.
Yes.
Now, again, when she's with Logan, that dynamic is really interesting.
Yeah, it worked.
And
I liked the two of them.
I'm like, okay, Joe's got something here. And then he decides to separate. I'm like, damn you. But Logan's an
I kept thinking they were going to get back together. So in my mind, I'm like, they probably found each other later.
Yeah, I do like when he goes to, like, apologize. And she's like, do you hear that? And he's like, what are you talking about? Because she hears the voices of the demons.
The voices, yeah. She's going even crazier, poor Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Poor
it's
Pharaoh.
hard to feel bad for Pharaoh because it's like she gets slapped in the face with the consequences of a decision, and she's all like, whatever, I'm gonna go kill people now.
Yeah, to a point. I feel more so bad for Pharaoh because of her backstory.
Well, yeah.
That's where the sympathy for Pharaoh comes from. It's not really the decisions that she's making once the narrative starts, because those are categorically bad decision after bad decision. But it's her past that you feel sorry for. At least I do.
Well, I do, but I don't know. Like, it's hard because she's always like threatening to murder people and.
That's not great.
That's not a good way to make friends with people, and I get she's almost like an animal at that point.
She doesn't really want friends, though. That's not really vibe.
Now, I say that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, like, she's an animal, but, like...
No, I hear you.
Like, she's basically, like, so, like in survival mode. Like, she's practically an animal.
Yeah, she's gone back to very primal instincts.
Yeah, poor Yolwe. Felt bad for him.
Yeah, that's an ending.
He was the only, like, nice one out of the Magi, because everyone's, like, crazy or, like, fucking megalomaniacal fucking bastards, you know? Like...
Quite a bit, yes.
Like, either they're all, like, megalomaniacs or just, like, crazy people, and you're always like, hey, guys, how's it going?
Just here to set everything on fire, no big deal. Yeah.
He's like, hey, Baez, are you sure you didn't do that thing? And he's like...
Yeah.
Graham McTavish as Baez, if they ever do a...
I thought Graham McTavish too, actually. I thought the same thing.
Just saying.
He just needs to be a little bit heavier, because according to the descriptions, Baez has like a bit of a gut or belly.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I do like at the end of the book or at the end of the last argument of Kings, where Logan goes, you stay the hell away from me. I don't want to work with you anymore. He's like, oh, are you sure? And he's trying to do the old, you know, kind wizardly act, and he's like, nah. And then he gets overthrown. That makes me think, I'm like, so, do you think Baez manipulated events? Or do you think it was just because Logan was...
I don't think so. I think it's...
You think it was just Logan alienating people?
I think Logan, from what we learned over the course of the trilogy, had a tempestuous history at best with a lot of the North. So it's not really surprising to me that people wouldn't want him back in a position of authority.
Yeah. Now, I mean, there's people who are like, oh, I don't like the, you know, end with Logan jumping out the window. I thought it was fine, you know. I mean,
I don't love it.
I liked the ending, but you know.
It's fine. Yeah.
Because again, it brings back full circle, you know. And
it does.
And, you know, Abercrombie, he loves those circular arcs, you know.
He does. I will give him that.
But, like, you know, and I thought about it later, and it's like, all three of the main characters are trapped in some way.
Yeah, I mean, Glokta is trapped in his position of authority. Then you have Giselle trapped in a marriage.
He's in this body he hates. And
a body that he hates.
And stairs. He fucking hates stairs. I love that.
Doesn't love stairs. Giselle is trapped in his marriage.
And basically being the puppet of Baez, and Logan's trapped in this cycle of violence.
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it. They are all dealing with some sort of entrapment.
But the thing is, like Giselle doesn't realize he's trapped until the end.
Yeah, it's at the end that he realizes that that's the case, but he does get there eventually, just slower.
Yeah, he's kind of. I just like this poor idiot. He probably should have died in the at the edge of the world.
Probably, but came back to be a king.
Man, I wonder if they went through their heads. It's like, damn, when he was all weak and like dying, we could have just killed him off right there.
Maybe. Maybe,
I
but
don't
that's
know.
not what Baez wanted.
No, I don't think Baez. I think Baez had a few more tricks up his sleeve than that. And plus, that'd be kind of underwhelming.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but no, I enjoy like the circular nature of the story.
Yeah, I did too. It was very cyclical, which I'm fine with. Some people don't love that there wasn't like, a great character evolution and redemption arc type thing, but that doesn't bother me.
But I'm like, that's the point. Like they can't change because they keep because they keep making the same mistakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Aw, it's a little kitty.
Yeah.
What's its name?
Mercutio, but we call him Murray.
Shakespeare.
Yep.
That always makes me think of the Sandman, because there's an arc of Shakespeare in that series. I don't know if you read comics.
Not surprising.
I don't know.
It's mostly... Sorry?
Oh, I was just saying, I don't know if you read comics, but I do love the Sandman.
I've read the first Sandman, but I haven't gone much beyond that with it. But he's more so named as a joke after the Ben Affleck character of Mercutio in Shakespeare in Love, because we thought it was just such a funny character. But it is like he plays the actual Mercutio from Romeo and Juliet, but the way that Ben Affleck plays in this film is just hysterically funny. So that's why he's named Mercutio. So, yeah.
Yeah, going back to Abercrombie, yeah, I like the kind of hello cattail. But yeah, I like the circular arc because it kind of it brings the series full circle about like, can you really change after a lifetime of bad choices?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the case of Jazal, his is the most interesting because he's the one that strives to be better in the story. I mean, Glokta kind of has glimmers of that as well, but that tends to be more so towards female characters than anybody else.
What's funny about Glokta and Jazal, I find that they're like the same character at different points in their life.
Well, yeah, I mean, they are in the sense, and Glokta kind of even implies as much that he is very much like Jazal prior to going to war.
Except, Glokta's much more jaded. And Jazal's just, he's an idiot.
Which, let's be real, because Jazal has
he's an idealist, but he's just an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, that's because of the fact that Jazal has faced zero hardship essentially throughout his life, so it's not entirely surprising. But with the case of Jazal specifically, he tries to be better when he is surrounded by a ragtag team and specifically Logan. And Logan, I feel like, does well in that mentor type scenario, but as soon as that's removed, then Jazal's nature comes back. He is who he is. He starts sleeping with Artie again. He wants to take Artie on as a mistress rather than taking her on as a wife. Like, he no longer strives to be good in the same way.
I disagree.
Okay.
I think when he does come back, I think he was serious about like, I don't want to be in the military anymore. I want to get with Artie, just, settle down.
I do too. I do too, but it changes quickly.
But my thing is, I don't think all of it was his fault necessarily.
No, not all of it.
Because Baez was manipulating events to,
He was, but even before Baez basically tells him, like, you can't marry Artie, he was already seemingly, like, regretting the fact that he was caught with Artie because Glokta walked in on them, basically, as he was leaving. And he was like, well, shit, now I'm kind of, like, locked into this relationship, and I don't really know how I feel about it yet, even though, like, 2 chapters earlier, he was saying to Artie that he wanted to marry her and all that kind of stuff. So, like, I feel Jazal, out of all of the characters, is the most directly influenced. It's nature versus nurture, and for him, it's very much, that's his person. Like, he's not great. He's not terrible, but he's not great. And when he has that influence of positivity near him, as soon as that's gone, it lapses, which I thought was very true to human
It's kind
nature.
of like
So I
Jamie.
appreciate that.
Reminds me of Jamie.
Yeah,
Like when he's
very
not with
much so.
Cersei, you're like, oh, he's not that bad of a guy. And then you see
Exactly.
him with Cersei again, you're like, God, get
Exactly.
away
It's
from
kind
that
of the
bitch.
reverse, right? When he's with Cersei, he's a worse person versus when Giselle is with Logan, he's a better person. But yeah, I don't know. That to me, I thought was very well done and articulated because it is true to human nature, I feel like. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, with Glocta, it's interesting because he doesn't really change. Well, I think he does. It's more like he's kind of not... He's trapped in this job he hates. Or I don't know if he hates it, but he doesn't like it.
Yes, he does not.
He hates his body. That's for sure he hates that. And...
Yes.
Like, he's not satisfied with what he does. And he's still, like, tormented by his conscience. And by the end, he realizes it's better to be a monster than to, like, deal with all this stupid crap about, you know, oh, is this the right thing to do, you know?
But then at the same time, too, in one way or another, he does he does take an opportunity to be a better person by proposing to Artie and saving Artie and her unborn child. Sorry?
Well, he's still human.
Yeah. You know.
And, like, he genuinely, like, grew to like Artie.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not, like, in a romantic way, but, you know, like, he...
Well, she put in her best effort to make it romantic. So,
yeah, I love when he, like, wakes up, he's like, ah, and then she's just like, hey, I'll come help. He's like, are you sure?
Yeah,
he's like, yeah,
exactly.
that's what married people do, right? Okay.
It's my cat knocking stuff over for attention. I'm sorry.
You have, like, multiple copies of Blade itself?
Nope. Oh, actually, yes, I have two. I have one that's signed, and then a paperback.
Yeah, no, like, one of my favorite bits from the series is when Logan is telling Kwai about his past. That monologue, just...
I liked Kwai, actually, quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Poor guy.
Yeah, not the best ending, but...
Yeah, no, it's like it's almost like everyone who comes into contact with Baez is probably not going to end in a good place.
Almost. I'm waiting to see how it all pans out in Age of Madness, because I'm sure that there will be lots of mentionings of things and people.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think Last Argument of Kings had a pretty ballsy ending, because it wasn't like a happy one.
It was not a happy ending.
Like, there were non-happy endings in fantasy before, but nothing like that, you know?
I'm trying to think, like... Some of the Game of Thrones stuff, like, isn't super happy ending, but there's so many different characters that it's not terrible for, like, everybody.
Like,
it's just
less
great.
Or I like how it's almost like he's telling the story and you think you know where it's gonna go, and then by the third book he just completely subverts your expectations on what happens. It's like, no, this is what's really happening, and you're like, oh no, you know. It's just filled with dread throughout the entirety of Last Argument of Kings. I'm like, oh no, this is not good.
It was hard to put it down. It was really, really just a very good book.
Even though I was like, no, That is one question. Baez calls Giselle a coward by the end of their relationship, you could say. Do you think that's true?
Not really. I think that Baez is like you said, he's a megalomaniac, and he's very high up on himself. So I think that anyone that has a difference of opinion or has taken a different pathway, he could potentially say that about.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that Zola is a great person by any means.
No,
but
he tries, but he's just a fuck up.
So, you know, there are things.
Yeah. I feel bad. I mean, I feel bad for Giselle, but I didn't... Like, it's weird. Like, he's an interesting character, but it's not like I was as interested as, like, you know, Logan and Glocta.
I was. For me, it was Glocta, then Jazal. Those are my two most interesting.
Do you like any of the North crew, at least?
I liked them all. I just found that the storyline was not super fascinating. And I found that out of all of the plot lines, it had the least satisfactory conclusion. Because the ending with Bethod, I thought was fine, but it wasn't like it didn't meet my expectations.
Yeah, I'll admit, when he, like, just goes over and just bashes his head in, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it's kind of boring. I was like, oh, okay, so
But
like
I will
that's
say,
it.
when Logan takes over, that's interesting. Or I thought it was.
It's okay. I found the part that I found the most interesting is basically Bethod saying to Logan, like, the reason I am this way is because of you. And I thought that was fascinating. And I was like, oh, if we have more time to like explore that, I would find that more intriguing. But we just didn't get that. So it was fine.
Yeah, no, but that makes you question, right? You're just like, well, what did happen between them? Like,
Yeah,
I don't
but
think
I
I don't think Bethod is lying necessarily
no, I think he's
because
100% telling the truth.
you know, Logan has the Bloody Nine, of course, and you know he goes into his
Mhm.
berserk rages. So I mean, like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
not
no,
saying he's completely
I get
lying,
it.
but I don't think he's telling the full truth, though. I'm not.
I don't know.
Why'd you
I
keep
don't
him
know.
around if you thought he was that much of a nuisance? You know.
But I did like Black Dow and
Blacked out. I don't know
Trees.
why Logan didn't kill him when he had the chance. Like, he was so clearly sus from the beginning.
Poor
Like,
judge of character, I guess, that Logan.
yeah. Say one thing about Logan Ninefingers. He's a sentimental Northman.
I suppose so.
Yeah, no, yeah, no. I mean, I think Black Dow's a fine character, but I'm just like, why didn't, like, Logan kill him?
Yeah,
Awful.
I mean, I get it. I think it was out of the fact that he was just tired of having killed Northerners and didn't really want to do it anymore.
Yeah. And it's like,
Thought
it's
he could turn
interesting
over a new leaf.
when he decides to go back to the north. That was one of those I'm like, well, why is it? And it's kind of like, well, what does he have? What else does he have?
Right.
You know, or that's kind of my interpretation. That's what I thought after a while. I don't know.
Not a bad take.
What are some other fantasy stuff that you enjoy aside from, like, you know, First Law and like Game of Thrones and stuff like that, and Neil Gaiman? Are there other
Do you mean books specifically or like
books series? You know, I'm not discriminating.
but do you mean like games and stuff too or more so
Well, I was
like
talking about books, but you can
literature?
talk about like games and stuff if you want.
Well, I love Dungeons and Dragons. It's a big
Oh,
one, and I love World of Warcraft. I've played for a very long time. Other books and things that I really like. I tend to like historical fiction, especially too if it like incorporates a little bit of fantasy into the story. So like I like the Saxon Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell.
I want to try Sharp from him.
He's great. I mean, he's an easy author to get into, which I appreciate. I really loved The Princess Bride, so
I
I
enjoyed
like
the movie quite a bit. I haven't read the
if
book.
you like the movie, you'll like the book. Honestly, it's a very, very good adaptation. It's very close to what
I
the
think it's
book is.
because William Goldman also wrote the screenplay. So
It was, yeah, he did do that, so it's good. But yeah, I'm hard pressed to like not like a book, honestly. It has to like for me, Way of Kings, it didn't jive with me because I found that a lot of it was unnecessary.
yeah, I
So that for me was a big thing. Like I don't mind a book being long as each part really serves a point. And I find that like Song of Ice and Fire does that really well, where like every little thing matters and it'll come back later and you're like, oh my God, like that's why that was said. And it's really interesting. And I didn't find that to be the case with Way of Kings. But really, I've had a really good reading year so far.
yeah,
Like my
me
lowest
too.
rating has been a 3.
I've had a couple of disappointments, but there's some good ones. Or this is great.
What would you say has been your best read this year?
Favorite read so far? Oh man, probably The Lies of Locke Lamore, and like in terms of fantasy, I really
Hmm.
enjoyed that book, like a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. I haven't read it yet, but I've heard really good things.
Oh, it is just it's so good. I read Red Seas Under Red Skies last month. That was very good. I do hope to read Republic of Thieves sometime later this year, because Lynch has fallen into the trap of other people like Rothfuss and now who else?
So is he not
Martin.
like, is he not publishing his next book? Is that what's happening?
He hasn't published it yet. I do think he plans to. He just hasn't done it yet.
Okay.
But I read
Yeah, I mean, I'm reluctant to start some authors now with the fear that I'm like, oh, I'm never gonna get the conclusion.
Rothfuss. I'm
Because,
kind of hesitant to try him because
yeah,
it's a trilogy, and I tend to read like trilogies instead of I tend to read
hmm
trilogies as well as like I'll read the occasional longer series like Game of Thrones, but I tend to stick with like trilogies and standalones. Um, Now Rothfuss, I would try him because he has a trilogy, so I'm like, okay, I can read that, but like
yeah,
he hasn't finished the damn thing yet. He was scamming his
yeah. My husband's
followers
actually,
too. I'm like,
yeah,
dude, come on.
yeah. My husband is reading book one now, The Name of the Wind,
Have you read the
and
Rothfuss books?
yeah,
Yeah, I was talking with a buddy of mine the other day about prose. It's on my channel. It's like you can go check that out on my YouTube channel. But
like and subscribe.
yeah, no, but yeah, he was just like, and we were talking about prose, and I'm like, yeah, what's good prose? And he was talking about Rothfuss, and he mentioned and he was like, oh yeah, Rothfuss is like fine, but like he's good for like if you like beginner prose. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. So like
The
maybe I'll
best,
try him, but
the best prose that I've read this year is Madeline Miller in Circe. I absolutely
I saw you
loved it.
got that behind you. I
Yes,
am
it
not a
is
I am
so
not
good.
a I am not a Greek mythology buff, unfortunately. I am more
You
of a
don't
Norse
have to
guy.
be to read it. You really, really don't. It's like American Gods in the sense that you can read it just as a story and take it as it is, and it's an excellent story. Or if you know Greek mythology, there's an added layer to it that you're like, this is brilliant, and it just enhances the reading experience. But really, anyone could read it and still think it's a very good book.
I like Norse more. Now I know Neil Gaiman has a book of Norse mythology, which I'm definitely gonna
Hmm.
read at some point.
It's great. You should.
Um, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. There's just so many.
Well, when you do, you'll have to let me know.
Yeah, we'll have like a discussion or something. I don't know. But
Sounds good.
but no. So you have Piranesi behind you as well.
Yes, I read that this year. Loved it. It's so, so
Um,
good.
I'm actually hoping to read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell next year.
I
I
haven't read it yet.
I am
This was my first read for her.
I am considering reading Piranesi either this year or maybe I'll just do it next year. But I'm really hoping to
You
do it
should
this
read
year.
it like as soon as possible. It is such a good book and it has stuck with me in such a weird way. Like I dreamt about this book
Nah.
after like for a few weeks after I read it. It was just it's an incredible book. I just love it.
I mean, yeah, I've heard it's a great book, and I've heard Jonathan Strange, Mr. Norrell is also a great book. So I'm definitely gonna try him at some point. But
Yeah.
we'll see what happens where the stars align.
Yeah, I mean, I try to incorporate standalones as I read to kind of just break it up a little bit. And Piranesi is nice because it's shorter. So you really could read it in like one sitting if you wanted to.
So you said you started reading. You said you started reading Best Served Cold. Where are you exactly? Like what point of the book are you at?
Um, they've just killed Malthus.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, so have you like met like Morveer yet and all the other funky bunch? What's weird
Yes, I
about Best
have.
Served Cold is I liked the side characters much more than I did the main one. Like
Yeah, I
Monza's
don't love
fine.
Monza.
Like, Monza's fine, but it's Pharaoh again.
That's what I feel. I like Shivers quite a bit more, and I like Morveer quite a bit. I think he's funny. So I like the dynamic too between his assistant and him, Day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying it, but I do wish that Monza was a bit more the character and not just Pharaoh.
Like, there's some interesting things about her arc, but it's just, it's just, it didn't appeal to me like, Morveer, or have you met Friendly yet?
Yes.
Okay. Or
His dice.
Shivers, which
Yeah,
is
I
also
like
funny.
Shivers.
I also think similarly. I don't want to spoil, but it's also a similar thing with him and Logan. They're the same character at different points in their life.
Yeah.
Which is funny, or maybe not funny, but it's weird because Logan killed his family pretty much. And he decides, you know what? I'm not gonna kill him. I'm gonna just go off and do my own thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to a new place, become a new person, and it's gonna be great.
Yeah, they'll take a shot every time he says he has some pride in him. It's fucking just, ugh, hate that. Anyway.
Oh, I'm curious to see how the book carries on, and then make my way through the rest of them.
But yeah, you liked Cersei?
Loved it.
Oh,
My favorite book.
I've seen some booktubers cover Madeline Miller on YouTube, so yeah, it's I don't know if it would be for me, but again, I'd feel like a bad fantasy fan if I didn't try her out at some point.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's fiction more than fantasy, so if you like that, then go for it. But you shouldn't read anything that life is too short to read things that you don't want to read.
Well, I mean, there are books that'll surprise you,
There can be.
So
But
I try not to
I'm
discount
a
it.
believer that, like, just because something is popular doesn't mean that you need to read it, kind of thing,
Well,
is where
yeah,
I fall into that.
I try to follow that, but it can be kind of
Yeah.
tough. Everyone's
It's
like,
kind of why, like,
Brandon
I'm not
Sanderson.
really going to read Cormac McCarthy or Stephen King. It's
And
just not for me.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Plus, from what we've talked about, I don't think you would like Cormac McCarthy all that much. So,
Fair enough.
because he tends to talk about like dark stuff. So,
Yeah.
really dark stuff.
Good.
Yeah. So I mean, so you've done reviews on your channel.
Mm-hmm.
What are some ones you enjoyed? Like you were like, wow, that was fun to make.
My first ones ever were about Mistborn, so that was fun just because it was like getting into the channel. So I enjoyed those. Oddly enough, like my most successful video was a review for a book that I didn't love. But I really like the show adaptation that has come from that. So that's been interesting. That's for All Creatures Great and Small, which is like a really old book, and the show is a masterpiece PBS drama, so it's not even fantasy related at all. That was fun to make because it was my first compare and contrast video with a review. But probably my favorite ones were the Mistborn ones just because they were my favorite. And I loved talking about Warbreaker because I just loved Warbreaker a lot.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, I watched some of your videos before we did this, so I watched your first Law one because I'm like, oh yeah. I got the like suspicion like you like more wholesome stuff, I guess. I don't know, but
not really. I don't really have like a preferred subgenre of fantasy. Like I don't love romance. Like I really don't like romance. That for me is a big thing.
Yeah, nobody
and, like,
likes romance. It's just it's
yeah. I
feel
don't
bad
really
for
have
romance.
time for it. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of instances in fantasy that I'm like, it's tolerable. Like in Warbreaker, it was tolerable to me. It was fine. But for the most part, I don't love it. Like in terms of wholesome, like I don't really love cozy fantasy.
Oh.
Like it's fine.
Yeah.
but not really for me. Like, I much prefer a first law to a cozy fantasy. Like, that's just where I
Okay.
tend to be. And like, I find that in certain Sanderson books, like it might be categorized as like cozy, but I'm like, some of the themes that are happening in these books are like not cozy at all. Like Mistborn for the most part gets categorized both in YA and adult fantasy, and like some of the tropes that take place within Mistborn, mostly the love story, are definitely YA.
Oh, you covered Legends and Lattes. Like I've heard
Yeah.
a lot about that book.
Yeah, and like in Mistborn, if we go back to that, like he's talking about abuse, like physical abuse, like there's mental health stuff, and I'm like, these are not like YA typical tropes and things like that. So yeah, but in Legends and Lattes, like it was fine for me. I will probably never read it again.
Yeah.
Then I know other
Yeah.
people that want to reread it all the time.
That's another one. Like I'm kind of intrigued by like the idea, like this kind of slice of life type of fantasy, but at the same time, I'm
Yeah.
like, looks so cutesy and like adorable, and I kind of don't want to read it.
It's a good palate cleanser if you've read something really heavy, I will say. Like I thought that's where I used it. I really used it as a palate cleanser, and it's a super quick read. Like I sat down and I read it in 2 days. So easy.
It's like you can like it looks kind of like nice and like sweet and like I don't hate that or anything, but it's just kind of like
Not for everybody.
there's sometimes it's like kind of nauseous.
Yeah, it's a bit saccharine, I will say, but I liked the thing I liked the most in Legends and Lattes was that the romance that took place was LGBTQ friendly, which I find doesn't really happen a lot in the fantasy sphere. So I was like,
Yeah, it's
okay,
often
at
viewed
least
as like a weird like kink or something. I'm like, it's not
yeah,
really.
and in this case, it just felt very wholesome and very natural. So I liked that part of the story the best. And
I might need a palate cleanser after I finish some of the books I'm doing because some of them are really like. Now, I mean, I'm reading Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, which is considerably lighthearted, but it's very long. Like it's like 600 something pages. So I'm like, after that, I'm like, I'm gonna like probably go on and be like, okay, guys, you have some palate cleanser ideas because I'm like kind of getting burned out a little bit.
yeah, no. So I mean, if that's the case, give it a try.
I don't own Legends and Latte, so I know I know the
Me
guys.
either.
I know the guy's like a what does he do? He's an audiobook narrator.
Travis Baldry, yeah, I believe so. But I think he was doing that. His second book is coming out this year, so he's been doing that quite a bit too. I think he's
Legends and
writing more stuff.
Lattes too.
It's not called Legends and Lattes. It's a different title, but I think it's possibly similar characters. But I'm not entirely certain. Based on the cover art, I was like, it looks like the same character, but be wrong.
Well, I mean, I guess it's just like I am kind of interested because like I'm kind of intrigued by like mundane versus like this weird like fantasy stuff, you know? I think that's interesting. Like, but at the same time, I'm like, looks a little too like wholesome. No, I don't hate wholesome stuff. Like I watch cat videos like everybody, but like I like stuff with babies. Like I like that stuff. But you know, there's some of it, like you said, it kind of sounds saccharine after a while.
A little bit, but it's okay.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's but yeah, like I'm more like First Law, Lies, Lachlan Mora. I like darker stuff, but I like stuff that I want to say I like stuff that challenges me, I guess. Because
Good for a reader.
if I just read the same stuff, like, I mean, I have stuff that appeals to me, of course. But, if I just read the same, like, genre, it would just drive me crazy after a while.
Yeah, I try to mix it up every once in a while.
I mean, I don't know if you like any other genres. I mean, I'm sure are there other genres you would like to cover on your channel?
I've had a couple of historical fiction. I've had gist fiction as well. I tend to like memoirs, but I don't really review them all that much just because they're not. Thank you, Murray. They're not really what I want to be talking about on my channel. I tend to
Yeah,
stick more to
I would
fantasy.
feel awkward doing memoir reviews because this is like it's like,
Yeah,
oh, this is their story, I don't want to kind of like if
exactly.
I don't
Yeah,
like it,
and
I don't want to shit on it.
yeah, I feel awkward even attributing a star rating to a memoir. I'm like, my opinion on your story is meaningless. Like, you felt this is the story you wanted to tell and you told it, so good on you for doing that. But like, I find certain memoirs more interesting. I love ancient history and religion, so like I'll read historical books and things like that too, just throw it in and stuff like that. But again, I just don't put them on my channel. So.
Like, would you like to cover other genres on your channel? Because I mean, like,
Yes and no. Like I've started doing some video essays and things like that where I feel like I can kind of like sneak it in. Like I did a video on the personification of death in fantasy and in literature, and I really like talking about that because it was cross genre. Talked about in one video all of the myths that were in Cersei, so I got to dive into it in that. Like my video that's coming out tomorrow
wait, is
is
that
on
spoilery?
yeah, a little
Oh.
bit. But then tomorrow I have like a video coming out on the Epic of Gilgamesh and stuff like that. So it's like I do have different things. But my heart really, my favorite genre is fantasy. So hi again. I tend
She's
to
like
mostly to
he's like
that.
my cat. She just loves walking on my stuff.
Yep, he's very much a cuddle bug and needs attention all the time.
Yeah, I see you have The Expanse back there. That's another series I'd like to try at some point because.
My husband loved it. Absolutely loved it. I have not read it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I tend to be like okay with sci-fi, but it's not my favorite over fantasy. Like I'll pick a fantasy book over a sci-fi book almost every time.
Yeah, but going back to what I was saying about like I like books that challenge. Like I'll take like a Piranesi or like like that interests me. I guess is
Yeah.
or not to say like I like stuff that challenges me. I guess.
I totally hear you. I try to pick at least a couple of books that are out of my normal wheelhouse every year and throw them in and just mix it up to make sure that I'm getting a variety.
Like what are some other booktubers you enjoy?
Love Bookborn, as I've said. I really love Joanna. She's like
I
so
enjoy Joanna
calming.
as well. I actually had her on my show a few weeks ago.
I saw, yeah.
She's
I
very
really
nice.
enjoy. Sorry.
She's very nice.
Yes. I love Punk Rock Cereal Bowl, Collins Corner, Chris Navo for a couple of
Actually,
my
I'm having
fellow
Chris Navo
2023.
tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Nah.
Yeah, I love my 2023 class.
Are you on the unexpected party thing?
Yep, I'm part
Aha.
of that group. Yeah.
Yeah, I was. They said I was the first member on there. I was.
I think you were,
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember. I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, because I'm friends with Carlos, from Story Too.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, here you go, because I did a show with him as well. And I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
got a thing? He's like, yeah, here you go. I join in. They're like, oh, you're our first member. And I was like, shit, because I thought it was started already. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. No, honestly, like I like most booktubers. So the ones that I probably tend to watch the most would be Leanna, Bookborn, Alan, and Joanna. But I'm trying to get a wider swath of people. Like I try to give new booktubers a chance to. If I see it's a new booktuber, I will click on it and just try to support them.
I used to watch a lot of Daniel Green. I don't watch him as much anymore. There's like others.
Yeah.
Like I'm so bad at keeping up with like because there's a lot of people I'm subscribed to.
Yeah,
So
Murphy too is like a big one for me. I really like Murphy, and occasionally I watch Elliot Brooks, but they're like big. And Mike, I watch Mike's too. I watch a lot of BookTube.
yeah, I like Mike. I'm actually hoping to again. I hope we get him on here I did contact him, and I do hope to have him on in August. So it's gonna be fun.
Awesome.
But there are points I do think he is a little rambly at times.
We all kind of are at some point or another.
Like me, I have bullet points on my videos because I like to be concise. So I'm
Fair enough.
I'm weird that way. That's just think it's because I have autism.
Maybe.
Which is also another creepy thing about Alan. I'm like, oh god, this is gonna be me when I'm 40 years old.
I mean, who knows? Never really know.
Yeah, I hope to get him on here at some point. I did contact him on Discord, and he just sent like a curt like hello, and I was like, okay.
I think Alan gets distracted pretty easily. My understanding is that you need to message him a few times in order to get like a full response.
Yeah, no, I'm sure he's a cool guy, but you know, I will say, as someone who is also a writer, I do envy Brandon Sanderson's work ethic. On one hand.
It is intense, yeah. It
He's
seems
like,
a little
what
bit
I did
exhausting.
during the COVID. I did 6 secret projects. I'm like, damn you.
Yeah, yeah. I commend him immensely.
Yeah, I see
he's having
him.
good
I see him in my bookstore all the time. Like I saw like Trees of the Emerald Sea, which I've heard is like Princess Bride, and I'm like, oh, okay.
I love Trust. I really enjoyed it. It was fun, and it was like The Princess Bride, yes.
I like that movie. You know. I haven't read the book though. I do enjoy. I do enjoy the film quite a bit.
Yeah, it's good. I love it.
I mean, it's an iconic movie. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but it's a good one. I enjoy myself.
I feel like it's iconic, but it's more my generation, I think, than probably your generation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a good movie. You want to see that? Yeah, I'm looking at your videos right now because I'm just like, you know. Oh, you got like Shadow and Bones.
It's my little YA contribution to the channel.
Princess Bride. Okay. Yeah, grimdark. What do you think about the term grimdark? Because I have I have an interesting relationship with that term.
When I started reading fantasy, like the term grimdark didn't exist, and I was fine with that being the case. But it doesn't bother me. Like I know Joe Abercrombie distinctively does not like his books being referred to as grimdark. So he just likes them being more so noted as being grimier and grittier and darker. And I'm like, okay, well, like it's kind of the same thing, but it doesn't bother me either way.
Yeah, no, I mean, though he goes by Lord Grimdark on on Twitter.
Twitter, yeah, exactly.
He's like, yeah, no, he's a interesting man.
Yes, I would love to meet him at some point in my life and interview him.
Yeah, that would be fun. I've seen him be interviewed by I've seen Murphy talk to him. I was like, how? And
I think he's pretty responsive, so you could always just try shooting him a message and see what happens.
I always feel weird about that. I mean, you know, I feel better when it's like with YouTubers that are like, you know, oh, well, there is one I have started watching Philip Chase a lot more, so you know, I really enjoy because I like I like people who take fantasy seriously as a genre. So I really enjoy that Philip does that, and I've started watching his videos a lot.
He's very professorial. I enjoy him.
Yeah. I'm like, man, it would have been awesome to have him as a teacher.
Yeah. Alan too, definitely.
Yeah, no, Alan too. Though I probably would have saw a lot of myself in Alan.
It's possible.
Though, I mean, and like, should that be the other way around? He should see a lot of himself in me.
Maybe.
But yeah, I watch him. I'm like, good lord, this guy is like, he reminds me a lot of myself. I don't know if that's a good thing.
If he comes on, you guys will have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I'll be like, Alan, like when he goes on rants about like Yas Queen, I laugh every time.
It's funny, Alan. I enjoy him.
Like, there's one thing, like, I asked some other people about this, but like a few years ago, did you ever notice like his teeth, like right there, like it looked like it was up? Or something like that, like they were smaller or something?
No.
No? That bugs me for some reason. I don't know. Weird.
No.
Though I do think it's funny in his Sharp review when he puts on like God Save the Queen. It's basically the tune of My Country 'Tis of Thee. I'm like, yep, classic blunder.
I do appreciate you having me on, but
Yeah,
I
I was
do
about to
need
say
to
I
get
should probably get going soon. I'm getting hungry, so thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
Before you leave, would you like to share your like social media or anything like that?
Sure. My channel on YouTube is Fantasy Awash, and on Instagram you can also find me at Fantasy Awash.
Oh, you don't have like Twitter or anything like that?
Nope, just Instagram for me.
Okay. Well, hope you guys enjoyed this. Until next time. All right.